Mayor Dave Jaworski, Regional Chair Karen Redmond, Chief Byron Larkin, MPP Amy Fife, MPP Belinda Caraholios, the Presidents of Waterloo and Wilfrid Laurier University, and the many CEOs in attendance, we are all very pleased to welcome our Premier to Waterloo Region. My name is Andrew McLeod, and as mentioned, I'm the CEO of Postmedia. I also sit on the boards of Waterfront Toronto and Communitech. It's my privilege to provide some brief opening remarks. I left Toronto almost 20 years ago and moved to KW to join a still small technology company called Research in Motion. It was one of the best decisions that I ever made. I saw firsthand how RIM's explosive growth really energized Kitchener-Waterloo. I also witnessed how successful technology companies can literally transform a region with jobs, investment, and energy. Communitech, a public and private partnership, has played a pivotal role in the growth and transformation of KW by creating the environment and providing the support for startups to succeed. Over the last decade, Communitech has supported the creation of over 3,000 companies, 19,000 jobs, and helped our region attract billions in investment. Canada can and must create its own tech titans, companies that compete and win on a global scale, like Shopify, and local success stories like Desire to Learn, Vidyard, North, East Centire, and Magnet Forensics, just to name a few. Government has a critical role to play in this process. And that's why I'm grateful to Premier Ford, who is laser focused on creating the right conditions for business and entrepreneurs to thrive and grow. Policies like cutting red tape and bureaucracy, reducing the regulatory burden and ensuring affordable power, making commutes and transit more accessible, and most importantly, eliminating structural deficits and reducing long-term debt. Premier Ford and his team are working hard to ensure Ontario continues to be the best place to invest in, grow a business, and create jobs and prosperity. Please join me in welcoming Premier Doug Ford for a Communitech fireside chat.
Thank you, Andrew. That was great. Thank you all very much for joining us here this morning, and thank you, Premier Ford, for coming and spending some time with us. It's great to have you here.
Appreciate it.
I wanted to start by finding my questions. Really good questions. No surprises. But I wanted to start by first of all saying that under your government's leadership, I think one of the things that we've seen happen is, of course, a significant focus on competitiveness. And we really do believe that that's necessary for our province and for our country right now. And so I wanted to thank you for your leadership on that front.
Thank you.
So on with the questions. I know this is going to come as a huge surprise, but we're going to talk about transportation and two-day all-day go. I know. It's everyone who comes to visit gets the same question, but your government has found a way to deliver two-way all-day go to our community at a frequency needed to support the incredible job growth in the area and reduce congestion to all people at a cost that is 75% less than the previous plan. We are 100% behind this plan, and the sooner the project gets funded by your government, the sooner we can see trains going both ways. And so my question is, can you provide us with an update on the status of funding for two-way all-day go to Waterloo Region?
Well, first of all, thank you. Thank you for the question. And I want to thank you for having me here today. And I want to give a shout out to two of my all-star members, Belinda Caraholios and Amy Fee, two incredible people, two incredible women. And by the way, I know it's a day later, but happy International Women's Day. And I'll get to the transportation, but I have to tell you, I sat back, as all of the men in this room sat back last week and yesterday and thought all the important women that play such an important role in our lives, and obviously starting with our mothers, right? Our mothers, our wives, our daughters. But then I sat back and I thought of our team down at Queen's Park. We just have an all-star team of women and men but an all-star team of women and play a critical role in every single ministry, no matter if it's my Deputy Premier, Christine Elliott, great Minister of Health as well, Minister of Transportation, Caroline Mulroney, Infrastructure with Laurie Scott, Associate Minister of Transportation, Kinga Surma, tourism. I could go all the way down the road, but what an important role. And at a facility, well, it's in trust now, but in Chicago and New Jersey, 2 women running our facilities there. And I'm a little biased towards women, considering I have 5 women in the house. So when we the Minister of Children and Women's Issues came up, I said I should be the Minister of Women's Issues, because with 5 women, I know every woman's issue you could possibly think of. But in saying that, I'm kind of diverting a little bit, but getting back to transportation, I know it's absolutely critical to get people from point A to point B. We're investing over $144 billion in infrastructure, and where we really have to focus is getting a partner, our federal partner, to match us on infrastructure projects like GO, roads, highways, bridges. You're nominated right now for 15 projects through the province. We've already put in $109 million building 2 tunnels, 401, 409, until we can have all-day two-way GO to Kitchener. We've increased rides by 50 trips, and that's over and on top of the 15 trips. And we focused on rush hour, midday, and rush hour at nighttime, and later GO service later at night. So we're up to 65 trips a day, but we want to make sure it's going to be continuous. But the first step is the $100 million investment we did to build these tunnels until we can get the trains up to Kitchener in a more rapid fashion. But it's really having a proper partner to come to the table, and we're announcing today we're bringing Team Ontario to Ottawa for the First Ministers meeting. Usually you don't bring your team of ministers up there, but it's absolutely critical when we have in total across the province 346 infrastructure projects, $144 billion, more than any other government in North America over the next 10 years, because infrastructure is absolutely critical. But we need a partner, and to be very frank, the federal government's dragging their heels big time on this. So we're bringing the Minister of Health, Infrastructure, Transportation, Economic Development, Finance, and Treasury, kind of stormtroopers going up there to get the money. And we're going to continue working with all 3 levels of government to make sure it happens.
Oh, we like the sound of that.
Yeah.
Because we certainly, as you say, certainly the need is there. I have a question that I wanted to ask you about skills and training. According to new data from StatsCan, Waterloo Region is the fastest growing metropolitan area in the country. Isn't that incredible?
It is.
Like, it's just... And so our high-quality post-secondary institutions, namely the University of Waterloo, Laurier, and Conestoga College, are a big reason why our community has been able to produce the skilled workers powering this growth. I know ensuring that all Ontarians have the skills, training, and education they need to succeed is a priority of your government. Can you tell us about some of your government's initiatives in this area?
Sure. We're really focused on STEM. That's our key focus, and I'm biased towards this area. One girl that went to Conestoga, and 2 of them went to Laurier, and I brag about Waterloo everywhere I go in North America about what a great university we have. And that's my selling feature. We have some of the brightest people, not to mention some of the brightest young people coming out of our colleges and universities anywhere in the entire world. And when we focus on STEM, those 3 colleges alone in universities, since 2018, we've seen an increase of 49% in STEM projects. They graduated over 14,000 students in STEM, which is, again, I said 46, I meant 36% increase. But our goal by 2025 is to have 70,000 students graduating from STEM, so just over another 4 or 5 years, and working hard with Minister McNaughton and along with Minister Romano, that takes care of the colleges and universities, and Minister McNaughton does the skills training. So we're going to just constantly focus on that region. We also look at investing into our high school students. We put $837,000 into the Waterloo Region Board to make sure that we get kids getting ready for jobs of the future, and $1.1 million into colleges and universities. Again, getting students ready for jobs of the future. And you've seen this negotiating going on about this online learning, and we said, okay, we'll be able to opt out if you want. But what the real story is, I think it's going to grow organically. There's over 55,000 students right now on online courses. And I think the boards and the unions, because I think the world of our frontline teachers, but the unions are underestimating the skills of students in grade 11 and grade 12. I've seen my 4 girls, they could run circles around me on online learning. And as I talked to a father the other day, he said, Doug, my son's all over me. He's in grade 12. He's going to take it because what he wants to do, or take a couple courses, he wants to take the afternoon off. He gets 2 spares, and a couple of his buddies are getting together, and they're all going to take it, and then he can pick up a job in the afternoon when he's not working. And the other area that everyone's forgetting in Ontario, and I've had the opportunity and the privilege to go into the far reaches of this province, and it's absolutely massive. Everyone says, what have you learned since you've been Premier? Well, number one, we've lived here our whole lives, but how large Ontario is. And there's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of students that don't have the opportunity and availability that kids in Waterloo or Toronto or Mississauga have on course selection. So you're way up in the rural areas, you get the standard. You get the math, the English, but you don't get the additional courses, and it's just not fair to them when you do that. So now they'll be able to have the same courses and available to them that any other student in a city or the suburbs would have.
Well, and I think it's also important in that as we think about reskilling and lifetime learning, online learning obviously is going to be a key component of that. I think that certainly in this community, technology and education are not things we fight against, that's for sure.
Well, I think it's going to double without anyone. Kids are just going to gravitate to it. Yep. It's just natural.
Absolutely. Already are. So I want to talk a bit about immigration for a moment. Our economy has been generating new jobs at a healthy clip, and the unemployment rate is now at a near historical low, with an unemployment rate of about 5% in Waterloo Region as well. And indeed, many companies in the region are finding it difficult to retain and attract skilled workers. Immigration, and in particular, the federal government's global skills strategy, has served as a valuable pressure valve in mitigating skilled labor shortages. How are you working with the federal government to ensure that our immigration system continues to serve and benefit Ontario's economy?
Well, the nominee program, economic immigration is called, or the nominee program, we're allowed 6,600 new immigrants into our country based on skills. And I've been just pounding away at the federal government, and I wrote them a letter. And they sent me back. It was almost a joke, and I told the Prime Minister, it's just a joke what you wrote me back. We asked for 1,000 more, which is peanuts. Our biggest problem right now as a province is we're short 200,000 people to fill the job, skilled and unskilled, on both sides. And that's all I hear everywhere I go in Ontario. We need more people. And if you aren't skilled, guess what? We'll train you. So I wrote a letter to the federal government and said, from 6,600, give us another 1,000. They wrote back and they said, you ready for this? We'll give you 50 more people. 50. We need thousands, and the other area, it's 2 rules. One for Quebec that has a total immigration policy that they can control, and Ontario and the rest of the provinces don't have the same rights as what the provincial government in Quebec has, and we just want to play fair. We're competing against Quebec and other regions, but mostly in the U.S. But give us the tools to be able to strengthen our companies here in Ontario. So that's going to be another issue that we're going to deal with the federal government when we get up there. And economics is very simple to me. To make yourselves competitive, let me roll back 19 months ago. Ontario lost 300,000 jobs, some of the highest taxes, some of the highest hydro rates in the world. They put us in debt, $346 billion. We're paying $1.5 million an hour on servicing that debt, $36 million a day and $13 billion a year. That's not sustainable. They left us with a $15 billion deficit that we have to pay down. The Liberals were spending $40 million a day that we didn't have. So when we went into office and we saw the numbers, I always believe and you have to create the environment, because government doesn't create jobs. They create the environment for companies and people to thrive. And how you do it is very simple. You cut the red tape and regulations, which we did, to a tune of $338 million. We put totally $5.2 billion of relief into companies. And we ended up accelerating capital write-offs. And I always know in our company in Chicago, we'd buy a piece of equipment, we could accelerate the write-off right away. In Ontario, you couldn't do that. So that helped to a tune of $3.8 billion. We lowered workmen's compensation costs, and I consider that almost like a tax break, by $2.2 billion. Your company must have seen the workmen's comp go down by 47%. We've lowered small business taxes by 8.75%. So you create this environment, and companies will, I know our company, and I'm sure your company, they don't have a big vault in the back that they stash the money. They reinvest it into people, into technology, into equipment, and they're able to grow. And that's what we did. And since we've taken office, we're leading North American job creation and economic development around North America. When I travel down to the U.S. and tell them our story, I'll never forget, we were down in Texas with Vic Fideli a few weeks back, and we didn't know. We went to the Chamber of Commerce, Texas Chamber of Commerce, and they said, "Here comes the Ontario miracle." And I broke out laughing. I said, "Why do you say that?" "Well, because the last time it wasn't a miracle. Your province was going on a downward slope. Now we're going on an upward slope. That again, we're leading North America in job creation. 76% of every job last year in Canada happened right here in Ontario. Those are pretty staggering figures. So our economy's on fire. Last month, KW region, in February alone, created 2,400 jobs. That's a lot of jobs. So and we're just slightly on the manufacturing, created over 14,700 manufacturing jobs, just slightly behind all of the U.S. So if you look at the numbers and you have the people and you unleash companies and unleash people, they're going to thrive. And the other area that we cut is $3.1 billion to people. It's very simple. You put more money into people's pockets, they're going to go out and do stuff they might otherwise not be able to do. As simple as, go for dinner, buy a refrigerator, do a small renovation, and that stimulates the economy as well. But we still have a lot of work to do. We still have to continue lowering taxes, lowering red tape, and all the burden on the backs of companies, because if not, companies will just leave and go down to Ohio, Michigan, New York. They'll snap them up in 10 seconds. So we're in a very, very competitive market.
Well, and I started out talking about competitiveness, and it really is so critical to our maintaining the quality of life and the prosperity of our community and our country. But there's a budget coming up, yes. And speaking of competitiveness and budgets, is any chance you can give us a sneak peek into what we might see in Budget 2020?
Yeah, the OPP delivered the budget to my house on the weekend. It was all confidential, you know. I got to be careful. I can't tell you everything, but it's going to be fiscally prudent budget. But in saying that, we're going to balance in 2023. We had a choice when we went into office. You know, do you want to go in there and balance 3-4 years? It wasn't realistic. I guess it was realistic in the private sector, but in the public sector, I don't want to hurt people. I don't want. They say about education being slashed. Education's not being slashed. The truth of the matter is, we're spending 1.2 billion more into education than any government in the history of Ontario. We're spending 1.9 billion more in healthcare, and we're spending 3.8 billion in mental health and addiction. So where is needed, we put the money. But I can tell you, being in government, municipal and provincial, and being in politics for 30 years, there is so much waste in government. It is staggering at all three levels of government. We were able to pay down our deficit, and well, you'll see over the next couple of days where we paid it down, but it's a considerable amount. And when the economy is just booming like it is, more revenues go up to the coffers, Queen's Park coffers. Again, I can't tell the exact amount, but it's in the billions. So when you lower taxes and more companies are hiring, and there's 300,000 more people working, paying taxes and spending money, it works. And there's billions more. It's not just about, you know, cutting, or I don't even use like the word cutting, driving efficiencies, because I come from a Lean Six Sigma background that we drive efficiencies. It's about creating new revenues. And I'll give you one simple example. You go down I-75, you see these signs everywhere. You go down the 401, the 400 series highway, you see very little signs. That would create a couple $100 million more for the province that we can allocate to education and transportation. Just a few signs along the 400 down towards Windsor, up here. It's kind of a no-brainer. So we have to think like the private sector does.
Well, and I'm thrilled to hear that you're focused not just on cutting costs, but also on driving revenue, because I think that's often forgotten in the public sector.
Yeah, driving revenue without raising taxes. Mm-hmm. You know, government and politicians love to say, you know, they have to raise taxes because we need more. They don't have to raise taxes. They have to run things more efficiently. I can tell you, if vast majority of companies ran like government runs, you wouldn't be in business. But we're treating it as a business now for the first time in a long time. We have historic lows, not only just here, but across the province in unemployment. And as soon as you start hitting the 4% area, you're considered almost zero unemployment, 0% unemployment, because the 4% are unable to work, or some just don't want to work. But we have to toughen things up. So the ones that are physically capable of working, there's jobs out there.
Mm-hmm. So I'm on to my last question, which is about broadband.
Yes.
And you started out talking about e-learning, and of course it's the other side of the coin as far as giving people opportunities. So it's important that all the regions and all sizes of communities in Ontario, be it small towns or rural areas, have the resources, capacity, and ability to participate in the digital economy. Universal access, high-speed internet is absolutely crucial in this regard, but we still have work to do to get to this point. What is your government doing to bring high-speed broadband to more communities in Ontario?
So we have a broadband cellular action plan that we're investing over $315 million across the province. And again, I go back to my earlier story. When you're in these rural areas, and you, even as simple as talking to farmers that have a business to run, and they have to travel into town to get broadband reception, or young people or students, you connect these people, change their lives, really. That's what you do. And we've changed a lot of lives. We're putting in broadband to 220,000 rural homes. We're investing with the private sector over $1 billion to bring cell service and broadband service to communities that they've never had before. and we're the first government to do that. It's absolutely critical for businesses and for young people to learn. So we're moving forward. Our third stream, by the way, is coming in right now for Southwest Ontario. So I encourage the local mayors to put applications in. I think that's about $34.9 billion. 34.9 million into infrastructure on the broadband end of things. So if you talk to your local mayors, by all means, get the application in as quickly as possible. But we have to stay the course, and there's something that we didn't touch on, which the area that I'm concerned is our economy with COVID-19. I'm going to tell you what our government is doing, along with a lot of governments. We've put together a central command table that we have the Chief Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Williams. We have the Minister of Health that people will be reporting into. We have some of the top scientists around the table as well. We also have each ministry putting an emergency plan in, be it the Minister of Tourism, Economic Development, Health, Long-Term Care, Transit, to be prepared. But and the worst thing to do is put a scare out there. Everyone starts panicking in events. Even today, half of us didn't know whether we're shaking hands or we're fist pumping or head butting or whatever it might be. But we have to be cautious, and we're all over this. We've had a joint meeting this week with all the premiers over the phone. All our health ministers are talking every single day across the country, and I do have to give credit, and I always will, with our federal government, Minister Freeland. We have a great relationship, her and I, and communicate frequently on it. And the whole world is on high alert. Again, some of the brightest minds anywhere in Canada are working on this, not to mention the U.S. and everywhere else in the world. But we're so much further ahead than we were with SARS. We learned a lot when it came to SARS. The only difference is SARS was more regional. Now this is worldwide. But let's just hope we're all focused. And it sounds a little crazy, but yeah, washing your hands is absolutely critical. The hand sanitizers that I have and probably everyone else has in your pocket, make sure it has 60% alcohol. Because if it doesn't, if it's a cheap stuff, it doesn't work. The best thing is warm water and soap. And we just have to be very, very careful and do our due diligence.
Premier, I think strong leadership is so important at a point in time such as now, and so we are. I think we have seen strong leadership from the politicians across the country, and we're it gives us comfort to know that the kind of focus and effort you're putting into this. It's an important time. The time we've had together, we had a chance to chat earlier, and I just must say that the one thing I think that struck me was the understanding that you have about the economy of this province and your ability to recite stats and figures and very specific numbers. It really does tell us that you know your business. And as the Premier, and you're really focusing on the things that we care about. So with that, I wanted to say thank you very much for coming and spending some time with us today here. I wanted to thank all of you for joining us for breakfast, and this will conclude the event today. Thank you.
Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you. Appreciate it.